Dino Costa.
You got that little sounder?
Yes.
Which show on this channel has the loudest vibe and the biggest buzz?
That's a good question.
Dino Costa.
Absolutely.
Has the loudest vibe and the biggest buzz. The loudest vibe and the biggest buzz.
I mean, that's legitimately a good question, and we'll continue to evaluate that.
You gutless cowards. Gutless.
What kind of a world do I have to live on in the radio where I have to contend with these kinds of people as my alleged competition?
Good story in the New York Times today on Lenny Dykstra. And and the mess that he finds himself in.
It really is hard to believe that was 25 years ago.
Really, if you're trying to be funny, it's Albuquerque. It's not Albuquerque. Okay? I mean, oh, jeez. Children, near the phones.
Crush it! Have I not exposed these frauds?
Yes.
Frauds?
Yes.
Nuts, but he's good. Nuts, but he's good.
My feet start dancing on the floor.
You gotta give him a blow.
Get the hips into it now. You ready? Get the hips into it now. Here we go, baby. Now,
Absolutely.
you got that little sounder? Oh, look at you! Look at you! Look at you! Look at you! This is my show. My show.
Dino Costa.
Oh!
The fundamental question that is faced by sports is, do they want, will the industry ever allow somebody to tell the truth on the air? But I don't think that today that will ever happen again. I don't think the industry will allow it.
Dino Costa is on your radio. Now. Dino Costa. It's Thursday across North America and around the world, and you're listening to the worldwide Dino Costa radio experience on Sirius XM's Mad Dog Radio.
That's hour number 2 of the DCS on SXM Sports Radio 86 across North America and around the world on this Thursday, the 4th of 5 award-winning and blockbuster endeavors, north to south and east to west and all those places in between. Come one and come all. Come get your sports-based radio right here now. Andrew Kaplan is your producer extraordinaire, joined in the studio in New York by the always erstwhile, very energetic, robust Aaron Gerberg. What more can I say about Aaron Gerberg? Do you realize when you were in Israel, Kaplan, that little old Aaron Gerberg was flying solo on a Conversation Friday last week?
Yeah, I heard about that.
Did a great job.
Yeah.
You know the drill on the phones. Whenever I decide to get to the phones, it's 888 Mad Dog 6 888-623 3646. And who was it? Where did that? Give me that, please. Hand me that right there. Thank you. That's Mark. Here it is in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Says, Dino, the email is way too long to read, so I'll just kind of summarize. He heard me talking about this week's Sports Illustrated. He like myself, Mark in Tulsa, Oklahoma, very pleased that Sports Illustrated decided to put the Pirates on the cover this week, and but he said, I heard you in hour number 1, you were talking about SI, and he said, did you see the pic? And I didn't see the picture until he alerted me to it. It's on page, I guess it's pages 6 and 7. It's of the Giants celebrating with Tim Lincecum after he threw that no-hitter against the San Diego Padres. I tell you, if Johnny Grubb was in the lineup, Lincecum wouldn't have thrown a no-hitter against the Padres. If Nate Colbert was in that lineup, nope. Fred Kendall, nope. I'll tell you that right now. Bill Allman and Mike Champion, Doug Rader, any of those guys were in the lineup. Cito Gaston, Gene Richards, any of those guys were in the lineup for the Padres. Lincecum would not have had the no-hitter. But anyway, he threw a no-hitter last Saturday. And by the way, I didn't mention this. I've been meaning to mention. I want to thank Mark in Tulsa, Oklahoma for bringing this whole thing up. Because here's Lincecum. He throws the no-no. Okay? He throws 148 pitches in the no-hitter. Lo and behold, would you actually believe? I don't know if you believe me when I tell you this. Lincecum's right arm did not fall off in the 12 to 24 hours after he threw his 148th and final pitch in that no-hitter. Would you believe it? His career's not over. He's going to make his next scheduled start. Could you imagine a pitcher throwing 148 pitches in his arm? He doesn't need Tommy John surgery? That, to me, I don't know about you. To me, that was the most telling thing in that no-hitter that Lincecum threw last Saturday, was that he threw 148 pitches and his arm was fine. Oh, for the days of major league pitchers not having to look over their shoulder as they get close to that 100-pitch limit. It's a sad thing. It's one of the major problems that I have with the philosophy of pitching and baseball. And if Mike Marshall, the former Cy Young Award winner back in 1974 with the Dodgers, coming out of that Dodger bullpen about 1,600 times that year, if Mike Marshall is listening to the sounds of this show, he's with me. If they're listening online at SiriusXM.com over in Japan, all of those guys over there that are in Japanese baseball, they agree with me. Let pitchers pitch. I think it hurts the competitive nature as well of a pitcher when you constantly know if it's not the 100-pitch mark, it's sometime very soon afterwards. You know, if it's not 100, it's 107. If it's not 107, you're definitely not getting past 110. And if you get past 110, you better be pitching a one-hit shutout, or in the case of Lincecum last Saturday, you better be going into the last inning that you're pitching with a no-hitter if you want to stay in the game these days and throw that many pitches. We have had so many arm injuries. The propensity for arm injuries is staggering these days. And ever since baseball decided to go to the five-man pitching, what's incredible about a bygone day and an era in Major League Baseball, which when you think about it, is not really that very long ago, is that not only did pitchers routinely well exceed the 100-pitch mark, but they exceeded the 100-pitch mark, and they were part of a four-man rotation. Now, they were parts of four-man rotations at a time when the advancements in sports medicine were never even close to being what they are today. And yet, they had 3 days between their starts, and they would throw 35 complete games a year and throw over 100, 120. They didn't keep pitch counts back then. If they did, I would bet that the average starting pitcher per 9-inning game was averaging somewhere between 125 and 135 pitches per game, and then coming back on 3 days rest to do it all over again? When I saw that Lincecum had thrown 148 pitches, I was hoping that the number would be higher. I was hoping it would be like 178. But 148, I mean, that's an eternity in terms of a numerical figure based upon the amount of the little amount of pitches that pitchers are entrusted with in this day and age. I believe, I've always contended, and look, I go back as a baseball fan to the day of the four-man staff and the non-advancement in sports medicine that was not that they didn't possess back then. And I know I'm not alone in this thought that the frequency with which pitchers are injured today with arm injuries has everything to do with not pitching enough. Not that they're pitching too much, but they're not throwing enough. They're not throwing enough. You look at this kid that the Marlins have. By the way, somebody want to tell me how many All-Stars the Marlins traded away in the alleged fire sale? How many? The All-Star game was just the other night, right? Somebody want to tell me how many of the players that the Marlins traded away to the Toronto Blue Jays were representatives of the American League team? When you figure that one out, get back to me. And you also want to talk about a fire sale, I know, because they traded the 27 Yankees, and each one of the guys they traded was an American League All-Star representing the Blue Jays the other night. But I digress. You got to let guys throw. You got to let guys, and I'm hoping that, they say that everything comes full circle eventually. And here's hoping that eventually baseball is going to go back to allowing pitchers to throw. Let them throw. 148 pitches for Lincecum. His right arm stayed intact. Amazing, huh? What the human body can do when you push it to its limits. Man. But anyway, leading also into the direct question that Mark had for me from Tulsa, Oklahoma, he referred me to this picture in Sports Illustrated this week and wanted to know my thoughts on the various art forms of celebrations which we see all the time. Quite frankly, I believe that we see way too much of this stuff. It's a great thing that Mark brought into the narrative here on the show today and tonight, because I think there's something to be said for the overzealous, overexpressive, overly redundant amount of celebrations that we see on Major League Baseball diamonds these days. I mean, a game. Now, look, I know that the Buster Brown caught a little flack from people, including yours truly, several weeks ago when he criticized the Mets for a game-ending home run. Was it Neuenhuis that Gerberg would remember? Was it Neuenhuis who hit that home run? And then Costa said the Mets acted like they won the seventh game of a World Series. Was that the game against the Cubs?
Yeah, that was Neuenhuis.
It was Neuenhuis, okay. So I just wanted to make sure. But Costas caught some flack, and I thought he should have. But you get teams now that, what's going to happen here? And mark my words, what's going to happen? We've seen it already, with these celebrations. I'm all for spontaneous enthusiasm. There's nothing that beats that. I love that guy. I love watching that kind of stuff, non-choreographed, non-planned or rehearsed stuff. I mean, just enthusiastic spontaneity in the moment. I mean, it's what makes the entire spectacle of sports theater on television the brilliant viewing stuff that it is. But we saw the most recent memory that I have of this stuff, and you probably remember it as well, is Kendry Morales, who hits a game-winning home run for the Angels, now with the Seattle Mariners, of course, but he's rounding the bases. He comes home, he jumps into the mosh pit at home plate, and he wrecks his knee, tears his ACL, and he's out for the year. But, it extends further because all of these, the Gatorade thing where they're chasing the player around the field with the bucket, the pies to the face, the shaving cream, the whole thing. Mark my words, somebody's going to get hurt. Somebody's going to get poked in the eye badly, have to go on a disabled list for a couple of weeks, maybe a detached retina. Okay, somebody with those. You ever picked up one of those Gatorade buckets, by the way? They're not light. Okay, somebody's going to move the wrong way, is going to get inadvertently slammed with a Gatorade bucket upside their head. It's going to concuss them. They're going to be out for a while. Or you're going to have players chasing after each other. You get a guy who has a game-winning single, and he rounds first base, and here comes the team pouring out of the dugout, and they're running at breakneck speed at him, and now he decides to play keep away. He's trying to get away from the guys coming after him. Well, watch. Either that guy that's trying to get away from the on-rushing team is going to tear ligaments, rip a groin, or somebody who's chasing him is going to do the same thing as well. To your point, Mark, and the point that Mark wanted to make, you're right. We are on the same page here, Mark, in Tulsa. I think these celebrations are getting well out of hand. And I think it's going to take someone getting hurt, like I say, in order maybe for someone to say something, which is going to, just slow that roll just a little bit. I mean, just a bit. Because the last thing, obviously, that any team wants to see is, one of their players that is going to be going on a disabled list celebrating a game-winning hit, a game-winning home run, whatever it is. You got to be a little careful. So I think your point, Mark, is a very good one. A very astute one, and I thank you for the email. Kaplan is at the studio with Gerberg, and we're with you. What time? What time am I on the air till?
Till 11 o'clock Eastern.
Just so I know.
8 p.m. Pacific.
11 o'clock on the East Coast and 8 o'clock out on the West Coast. And so let me get back now to this thing that I kind of gave you the teaser a little bit. I wet the whistle a little bit in the first hour. And sportsonearth.com, which, interestingly enough, has become one of the most visited websites that I go to because I find many of the stories there to be in long form and to be some pretty good writing. And Patrick Ruby, of course, has written for them for a long time, and he's made several appearances on my shows over the last, year or so, or ever since that website was birthed. And there's a story on there today by Jack Dickey. And he starts by talking about Keith Olbermann being hired by ESPN to do the show. And I made mention of it on the show yesterday and last night. Now, I hold out hope for the show. Kaplan approached me during the top of the hour break. And Kaplan said to me, Dino, you really hold out hope for this Olbermann show? And I said, I do. Maybe it's because I want more substantive, smart, and compelling, edgy style and substance, sort of a steak and sizzle show to be on television that covers the world of sports, because it's a barren landscape. It just doesn't exist. I mean, those kinds of shows just, the kind of shows, Kaplan, that are created, unfortunately, are the dumbed-down versions of many of the shows that I'm so critical of, whether it's Blow My Horn or Cold Pizza, or what's the show with the what's his name in the morning on ESPN?
First Take?
First Take.
Yeah.
You're not a fan of the Le Batard show. You think it's completely atrocious.
Yeah, terrible.
These are the kinds of shows that are formulated for sports. And what I want to see with sports, and I know I can't be alone. I know I can't be alone, because I've often said that these NFL pregame shows, and how often over the last 5 years have I talked about this? These NFL pregame shows, whether you're talking about the show on ESPN, maybe to a lesser degree slightly on ESPN than that of Fox and CBS, and but they're geared, presented, projected, formatted, and delivered to I would think, if I knew nothing about sports and I watched one of these shows once or twice, my feeling would be that these shows are catered and designed to appeal to people with an exceptionally limited IQ level. It's just it's frat boy television. It's not hokey. It's not cute. It's dumbed down. And, these producers and directors of these various pregame shows, I don't care if you're talking ESPN, NBC, CBS, Fox, whatever, there are so many great features that they could be doing. Real interesting stuff. Stuff that makes you think a little bit. Now, I'm not prudish enough to suggest that you don't inject humor and levity into what you do, no matter what you do, whether you're covering hardcore, nuts and bolts politics, or you're covering economic issues, or whatever you're covering, even in sports. On this show, there is an injection of personality and humor that has got to be a part of the process. It oftentimes is. But so I'm not saying that there should not be any fun and games on an NFL pregame show, but where I think these NFL pregame shows miss the boat is that they could be having if they would allow their creative juices to really take over. It seems like the people that are producing these shows are more creatively bankrupt than anything else. So if they took some time to really apply some thought to what they're presenting, one of these shows, hopefully at some point, is going to say, something, let's break the mold. Let's break the mold. Instead of just a good old boy round table of yucks. And have you ever seen guys laugh, Kaplan, when you watch these shows so unauthentically?
Yeah, it's every 5 seconds.
Every time. And my goodness, if you took the amount of laughing and joshing and joking. I haven't watched an NFL pregame show, Kaplan, in 25 years.
Yeah, why
think
would you?
About that. Well, exactly. Well, think about that. I have not watched because there's no reason for me to watch an NFL pregame show. The only time that I'll watch an NFL pregame show is if I watch a segment that has been promoted with somebody that's doing it, and they're interviewing somebody, or they're providing a segment with someone that I think it might be worth my time to take the 10 minutes to watch it. I might apply myself in that way, but for the most part, I'm not watching any of those NFL pregame shows because I find them to be overly juvenile. It's an infantile presentation. You have smart men up there on the Fox show and the ESPN show and the CBS show. You have smart men up there. Okay, you have millionaires up there by virtue of their playing careers, the former players that are a part of the presentation on any one of a number of these pregame shows. You have smart people up there. You have very wealthy people up there acting like total morons. And if I wasn't a sports fan, if I was sitting down with somebody, hey, watch the pregame show with me. I know you're not a big football fan. Okay, I'd watch 10 minutes of that, turn to the person that that I had a healthy amount of respect for before I sat down to watch one of those shows. I turn to this person, I say, you mean to tell me you watch this week after week? I mean, I know you complain that I watch Meet the Press and Face the Nation and, all that kind of stuff. But, I mean, come on now. I mean, you're talking about reasonable, smart commentary, whether you agree or disagree with it on a political stage with a political show versus this kind of stuff. It's sort of, Kaplan, what I mean to say when you talk about, or when I talk about listening to a syndicated heavyweight on the radio who's got a show, who's been on for you. Take a Limbaugh, for instance. I don't care if you agree or disagree with Limbaugh. He's the most successful talk show, and I don't always agree with him, but he's the most successful talk show host in the history of the craft. There is no disputing this. But how do you go from, if you listen to Limbaugh, I don't even know who would be the equivalent. I don't want to leave my liberal constituency out of this, but who would be the liberal representation of Limbaugh? Is there anyone?
Nowhere on his level.
Well, not on his level, but I mean, is there someone who is popular amongst the disillusioned liberals that they say, well, this is my equivalent of the Rush Limbaugh show? Can you think of anyone?
Is Tom Hartman up there?
Maybe. I've never heard his show, but okay, let's use him as the perfect guy who's kind of like, let's just say, all right, hypothetically, he's the Limbaugh of liberals. Okay,
yeah.
All right. So if you're a liberal and you're listening to Hartman, or you're a conservative and you're listening to Rush, you mean to tell me you can listen to these two guys with the intellectual capacity that both, I'm presuming, possess, and then when you go and listen to sports-based radio, commentary, opinion, issues, and items, you take the plunge from an IQ level from way up there. I'll put both Hartman and Limbaugh way up there. They're at equal footing up there, okay? Hypothetically speaking. They're up there. Okay, now you want to go to someone who you're going to listen to talk sports issues and items. And you're going to jump all the way down here. I'm looking down for yucks and, T&A references, sexual metaphors. Sports is fun, yes. Sports is passionate. Sports is connective. Sports is uniting. Sometimes dividing. Sports is all those things. But are you telling me? Because Jack Dickey tells me on sportsonearth.com, he tells me that not only do you not want a smart presentation of sports, whether we're talking about visually on television or through your radio speakers on, of course, radio. In several different capacities, AM radio, FM radio, traditional radio, Sirius XM, satellite radio, whatever it is. He's claiming that, and where is the line that and he talks about Olbermann here as well. I want to get to this, but the one thing that he did say here that I really disagree with was when he talks about here it is, the sports lacks the connective tissue that sustains, for instance, good cable news television shows. Does it? Does it lack the connective tissue that, verbatim in the words of this Jack Dickey, that sustains good cable news shows? Or does it possess many of that same connective tissue? From an issue standpoint, of course, because news, politics, economics, all that stuff, when you're talking about those things on television and or radio, these are presented with from an issues point of view. So does sports lack that same connective tissue? Or does sports retain much of the connective tissue that sustains, for instance, good cable news shows, but it is just not presented in those ways by the overwhelming vast majority of people? I would think more so in the way of people that work in sports media in the electronic form rather than in the written form. Because in the written form, there are, for better or for worse, depending upon what your view is of the writer or columnist, I think that we have really moved, and it's not just now. I think if you go back through the years, whether you're talking about Jim Murray with the Los Angeles Times, or you're talking about the late Dick Young with several newspapers in New York, or you're talking about people like Red Smith, and we had the author of the Red Smith book on several weeks ago, on into today's times, whether you're talking about a Simmons with ESPN, or a Bernie Michaelis out in St. Louis, or a Randy Galloway in Dallas, there are still many fine columnists that can present sports in an extremely compelling, thought-provoking way. Electronically, you see, the reason that and again, Kaplan said to me at the top of the hour, you really hold out hope for this Olbermann show, and I do, because there's a vacuum out there that doesn't have that similar texture to the electronic radio and or television medium that is applicable in the printed word, with some of the names I just mentioned, both present-day contemporary writers and guys that have written over the years. And I might have left your favorite sports columnist out of the equation there, and I apologize in advance. But you understand what I'm saying. Give me something with meat and potatoes. Give me something smart. Give me something that's exciting at the same time, that's personality-filled, that's got some wow factor to it, that's articulate. Give me something that I'm not feeling as though I have to lower my standards in order to take part in it. Real sports delivers that to me every single time they air the next episode. And so this is why I'm hoping that the Olbermann show is going to fill the void that I feel is out there. It's not only I'm hopeful that Olbermann's show is going to be successful, I hope Olbermann's show is successful on two levels. Number one, because me as a consumer of sports news and information and a lifelong passionate sports fan, I want something like that I can relate to, that I can watch, that I can enjoy. And then secondly, I hope that the inclusion of this kind of a show with Olbermann will spawn other like-minded shows with other television directors, producers, channels, networks who will say, hey, look at this, it can work. We can present sports. There is a market for presenting sports on this cerebral level, for lack of a better way to put it at this point right now. The title of the story on SportsOnEarth.com by Jack Dickey is The Brain Games. And I also found another piece today when I was looking at this. What is SB Nation, Kaplan? What is that exactly? Do you know what that is? I don't go there all the time. I hardly ever go there. What does that stand for, SB Nation?
Isn't that like a collection of blogs?
Is that what it is?
They say it's a collection of over 300 individual communities.
Okay, well, a guy by the name of Steve Lepore wrote a story today concerning this Olbermann thing that's going to be coming up. And the headline to this piece is, Keith Olbermann is a risk, but not for the reasons everybody thinks. And as he puts in here, I think this is very appropriate. He writes the following paragraph. He writes, the fact is that as long as Keith Olbermann can keep working with people, he's going to produce smart, passionate television. If he's working in sports, all the better, as he knows it as well as any man working as a sportscaster. He's going to make a show out of nothing. This is the point that I think he hits on the best here, this Steve Lepore. Olbermann is going to make a show out of nothing in the next 40 days. And I guarantee, he writes, it'll take less time to find whatever groove it wishes to than anything that Fox Sports 1 or any other network will debut this year. And I happen to agree with that 1,000%. But I go back to the Jack Dickey story on SportsOnEarth.com, and let me read you another thing that he wrote. He said that on cable, if you're talking about a good cable news show, on cable, the host needs to walk viewers through a 1,200-word newspaper story or a 2,500-word magazine story on, for instance, Syria, before he or she goes to an expert to talk about it. Sometimes, he writes, the story unfolds dialectically as the host asks an expert to explain. Only afterward do the all-purpose pundits appear. He goes on to say that, but sports, in the next paragraph, he says, but sports, unlike politics or economics or the Middle East, have very few stories with that kind of a narrative, that kind of heft, that kind of room around them to have meaningful discussions. Kaplan, on this, as I think you're, how old are you, Kaplan? 29?
Yeah.
Do you agree with that?
No, absolutely not.
Why?
Well, then he lists the three stories that do connect people. I think there's a lot of them. They're just not being, expressed the right way.
There's many well more than what he mentions. You've got the story obviously in front of you as well. He mentions, as an example, the year 2013 has given us Aaron Hernandez, Biogenesis, and Jason Collins. And then he writes, on top of those, there are evergreen issues that he considers evergreen issues. He writes head injuries, amateurism, public financing for stadiums. He writes, are there really other sports stories that, in the absence of new reporting, would make for a good talk show discussion longer than 3 minutes? I happen to think so, Kaplan, absolutely and positively, but I'm biased in terms of the way that I do my own show.
Yeah, I think there are too. I'm not so sure maybe the average sports fan wants to hear about it, though.
No, I disagree with you. I think the average sports fan does want to hear about it, but doesn't get it the way that it needs to be delivered because there are there are needle and haystack percentages of people that are on the radio doing talk shows that can deliver it in said form and fashion, Andrew.
Yeah, but don't you think if people were out there that the networks would get
well,
it to
hold
them?
on. No. I'm talking about radio and television.
Yeah, if the audience was there, why wouldn't the program directors give them these kind of shows?
Okay, how do you defend my show then?
I think you've carved out a niche.
Well, this is my point. That niche is an exceptionally narrow niche.
And there's very few people that can do this kind of thing.
This is what I've been saying. This is what I've been saying. This is a theme that I constantly am coming back to. Yes, you can do sports in all the ways you do news or economics or whatever else you want to talk about. It's just there's a very few people that look at sports, either people that are pulling strings, opening doors, debuting shows, responsible for crafting new shows. They're trying to go for the gong show effect with sports shows, whether you're talking television or radio. Let's do something wild and zany and outlandish and crazy. And hey, the nuttier and the crazier, the more people are going to love it. They're going to lap it up and come back for seconds and thirds. Wrong. Look at ESPN's ratings, Kaplan, of those shows that they have currently. Nobody watches them. So, yes, you can. Number one, there are many more issues well beyond Aaron Hernandez, Biogenesis, and Jason Collins that can be woven into a tapestry that can present extensions off of the central core content that develop into meaningful and productive dialogue from the host in cross conversation with callers, and certainly on television, presenting it in a way, in a shape, and in a form that allows people to say, let me think about this. It's just that there has been a reluctance to do it in the ways that, number one, the way I do it on radio, and in the ways that I hope that this Olbermann show is going to be created. And then, if you notice, he says when he asks the question, this Jack Dickey, are there really other sports stories that in the absence of new reporting would make for a good talk show discussion longer than 3 minutes? Let me ask you again, Kaplan, do you think that there are?
Yeah, I do.
Okay. So and then he says, by way of answering that rhetorical question, and he's assuming that everyone would answer the question, no, there aren't. I disagree completely. But he says, by way of answering that rhetorical question, here's another. Have you ever tried listening to national sports talk radio? Yes, Mr. Dickey, I have. I've tried the operative word in the sentence. Succeeded in continuing to listen to it, Mr. Dickey, much like you, sir. No. It is almost an impossible act. He goes on to conclude by saying, if it's not the games themselves, and if it's not especially informative, moving, or funny, why would anyone watch sports television? And his final sentence, as he writes, he says, the problem isn't that sports talk lacks smart people. It's that smart people have no need for sports talk. I would argue that smart people do have a need, a thirst, a desire, and a hunger for smart sports talk. Yet, the pickings are exceptionally thin when it comes to smart sports talk, which is why, in my estimation, the craft itself is not looked upon favorably by many people. 23 to the hour. Got to take a break. Hour number 2 on the Dino Costa Show on a Thursday. It is show number 4 this week. I'm back with more great stuff. I promise, right after this.
Dino Costa. Non-corporate and totally independent sports commentary and opinion you can't get anywhere else. This is the Dino Costa Show on Sirius XM's Mad Dog Radio.
To the hour on a Thursday. Oh, it's good to be with you till 11 o'clock Eastern Time, and that would be 8 o'clock out on the West Coast. 888 Mad Dog 6, 888-623, and 3646. Next week, you just may want to mark your calendars. Kaplan is. Are you taking Monday off, by the way? If I'm taking Monday off?
I'm going to try, yeah.
All right, so I'll be on the air Tuesday. I'm using my last remaining vacation days. I'll be on the air Tuesday and Thursday next week. Monday, Wednesday, Friday of next week, I'll be off the air. So just you may want to mark your calendars with that. I don't know who's going to be filling in, but I'll be doing shows on Tuesday and Thursday next week. 888 Mad Dog 6, 888-623-3646 on this Thursday, July the 18th, 2013. Across America and around the world on Sports Radio 86, Kaplan. Sirius XM. You like that?
Yeah, it's
got
a nice ring to it.
It's got a nice ring. Sports Radio 86?
Yeah, I like it a lot.
Huh?
Yeah.
Now we need a jingle. The Sports Radio 86 jingle. That's what we need. Let me go grab some phones for the first time on the show here deep into hour number 2. Let me start with Tony. He's in Niagara Falls, New York, and he's on the Dino Costa Show. Hour 2, as I said, on this Thursday. Hi, Tony.
Team Dino, Niagara Falls headquarters, planting the flag and keeping the wheels rolling for you, sir.
I salute you. Born again hard. Carry on, Tony.
You know, I'm going to have to read this article when I get home, the sticky article. I got 2 points on this. It almost sounds to me, from the way you presented it, he's not only trashing the sports talk radio and television industry, it almost sounds like he's trashing the sports talk consumer and sports fan in general, because he definitely separates them, smart sports fans, and they don't need sports talk radio. That sounds kind of like a little jab at the general populace, and it also sounds to me like it's an untapped market, okay, because there's obviously more than one or two smart sports fans. He seems to downgrade that a little bit to me, Dino, and I want to get your thoughts on that.
Well, a question coming back to you before I comment on what you said. I agree with a lot of what you say, but when you, for instance, listen or watch a sports television show, or you listen to a sports radio show that deals with the issues and items of the sporting world, what is it that you're seeking? What are you looking for? What engages you? What appeals to you specifically? Now this is what I ask you is subjective, and the next person that I ask the question could very well give a completely different answer than you do. But let me start here. What do you look for?
Honestly, I guess I look for entertainment. I do not watch a lot of TV per se, but when I do, it is typically sports, and I'm looking for a good match. I'm looking to be entertained. I'm looking to be compelled, and I don't want to get into the butt-kissing mode here, but that's why I listen to you, Dino, because you compel, you make me think about things, and whether I agree with you or not doesn't really matter.
Here's my question. But why? Forget about me. Act as though this show doesn't even exist. Why is there a dearth? And I don't know how much radio you listen to. Why is there a dearth of shows? I'll presume. Why is there a dearth of shows on the radio that really do make you think, that entertain and inform at the same time? Why is that?
I guess I'm going to try, I don't know, this is from left field here, but maybe the products that they're marketing with their commercials and stuff, they just feel like they can't sell to me. Like, I don't know, an example, Budweiser. I'm never going to drink that piss in a million years, but that's what a lot of these shows will advertise. Budweiser and these other dopey things out there. I mean, that's just a shot in the dark. I'm not 100% sure, but that might have something to do with it because I'm not interested in most of the products they're selling.
Well, you're a smart. You consider yourself to be a smart and aware individual, but yet this writer says that you know something. For someone like you, you're a smart person, but you don't necessarily need smart sports radio.
Need? I don't know if it's need, but I definitely have a thirst for it because I don't know if I consider myself super smart, Dino, but I'm always learning. I definitely have a thirst for knowledge and looking for something new. I want to learn. I want to expand what I know. I want to know new things, and maybe that's why I don't watch a lot of TV, and maybe that's what he's talking about because I don't really learn much of anything unless I'm just watching a live game, a baseball game or a football game, because I'm not learning anything from most of these guys that are on TV right now. I can tell you that. I don't learn a damn thing. I learn about how to yell at each other and to give disingenuous laughs. Yeah, big deal. I have no interest in any of that.
Well, I'm going to have this guy on tomorrow, hopefully, and I'll pick his brain a little bit and get him to amplify some more of his thoughts here because I can't understand why someone – now, the Olbermann show's coming on. As you know, I hold out great hope for this thing. I can't understand – so I can't understand why someone would say, do we really need a high-level look at the sports world on such an intellectual level, something that is probably going to be a little bit too cerebral for most people? My contention, Tony, is that just like you said before, there are people who do want this, who do desire it, but there's a plethora of it available, and when you find it, you almost feel like the person who found the golden ticket when you opened up a Willy Wonka chocolate bar for a tour of the factory.
Basically, I hold the same hope that you do. I mean, obviously politically, I can't stand Olbermann, but back when I was in my late 20s, I mean, when Olbermann was doing SportsCenter, not that there was a lot of opinion on SportsCenter, but he was compelling on to me, he was entertainment. At the 11 o'clock SportsCenter used to be must-watch TV for me, I'll admit it. And then he went away to this political thing. It was kind of strange, I couldn't stand him on MSNBC, but every once in a while there was something always pulling me towards the guy. Even though I knew what I was getting if I tuned into that god-awful show, I knew what I was going to get when I tuned in, but something kept pulling me there, and I don't know if it was his intelligence, presentation.
I agree with you. Listen, I'm like Tony. Politically speaking, I find no common ground with Keith Olbermann. And again, the last time I saw Olbermann was when he went to my dear friend Burt Randolph Sugar's funeral in Chappaqua, New York, I think it was about 2 years ago, if I'm not mistaken, year and a half at least. I forget, but I will admit as well, whenever I would flip the channel and channel surf and Olbermann was on MSNBC, if I stopped on MSNBC at any time, and ladies and gentlemen, I can't tell you the last time that I tuned in MSNBC, but I can tell you this, the last time I did tune in MSNBC was when Keith Olbermann was in front of my face. Not because I agreed at all with him, but because he's got a presence. He's got something, and hopefully that presence and that something, and I have conceded on multiple shows previous whenever Olbermann's name has come up, I've got a healthy respect for his sports knowledge. He's a baseball historian, so I hope with that presence and that something that he has, that it's going to be able to manifest itself into a show on ESPN that's going to be well worth everyone's time. Dan is in New Mexico, USA. He's on the Dino Costa Show, Hour 2 on this Thursday. Hi, Dan.
Dino, we need to get Reverend Pike on to see what his opinion is.
I think we'll skip the good Reverend today.
That was possibly one of the greatest calls. That was the second greatest call ever on the show. Next to when, our guy from Kansas City haloed in from 90,000 feet. So, hey, I think you're the Jack Anderson of sports talk radio. And that is a total compliment because Jack Anderson was, they called him a muckraker, but he went out digging. He walked to his own beat, and there's nothing like that anymore. I mean, sports talk radio now is all interviews. It's all kissing ass. It's all telling about these people how wonderful they are, and they're all pictured products. And it's horrible. And why I listen is I'm looking for a refuge from the world around us. Because I listen to news talk, and if you pull up a Mercator projection of the world, Dino, the world now is aflame. It truly is. If you look at all the problems in the world right now, I mean, we just had Detroit file for bankruptcy. Do you know what it's like for a major city like that to file for bankruptcy? That is almost unheard of. Nobody's talking about it. Nobody gives a crap. And it's almost like sports talk is almost like my little bunker sometimes to go in and to, just give my brain a break from the
yes, I know that, but Dan, sports talk is done primarily. It's a carbon copy. I feel this way. It's a carbon copy. It's a replication of other shows, just different voices in different towns and so on and so forth. I don't consider the medium to be very inventive. I don't consider it to be innovative in any way, shape, or form. Which is again why I hold out hope for this Olbermann situation. Now, aside from the compliment you just gave to me, and I thank you for that, but the question bears to be asked again: do you want a smarter presentation of sports, whether it's on radio or television?
I used to like that sports reporter show on ESPN on Sunday mornings.
Yes.
Until it devolved. It devolved into everybody hardly ever taking a position, and then the people that would come on that actually have strong opinions, they booted them off. Like Jason Whitlock used to be on that show all the time, so he strayed away from the four-letter, pardon me, plantation, and started taking his own positions. And Marcus Berton's on there every now and then, and he has some strong opinions. But other than that, it's just an echo chamber, and the four-letter provides nothing. I mean, I'm holding out hope that Fox Sports 1 could possibly do something, but it would be a pretty bold step,
Well, it would, and I'm interested to see what they're going to do, obviously. I think that you're going to see a lot of cause and effect here. I think the Olbermann thing now is you're going to see Fox Sports 1 come up with something to answer that, and then, maybe ESPN will recounter, with something. I think this is good. I think it's healthy for the competition. I think that the winner potentially in the whole thing could be us, the sports consumer. We'll see. Cleveland, Ohio. And Matt is on the Dino Costa Show, Hour 2 on a Thursday. Hi, Matt.
Hey, Dino. How you doing? First time
Hi, guy. Hi. Thank you.
I'm really shocked to hear what you had to say about the Olbermann show. When I first found out that he was going to be back on ESPN, I couldn't wait to listen to you because I thought you would go on some rant. What is it exactly that you think he's going to bring? Like you say, you want smart sports talk. Do you think he's going to bring that? I mean, he wasn't that good on the NBC show, and I think there is some smart talk out there.
I'm hopeful he'll bring it. I don't know if he'll bring it. I'm hopeful he'll bring it. I want to see what the flow and the direction of the show is going to be. But I'm hopeful that if there's someone that is can break the mold with a show that is not a carbon copy of so many of the others that we see out there, that this potentially could be that show. Give me your. I heard what you just said. You said there is smart sports talk out there. Give me your opinion on what smart sports talk is.
I think that Mike and Mike do a pretty good job. That Van Pelt they do a pretty good job. That First Take show they put a lot of issues. I don't always agree with what they have to say. I never agree with Olbermann, so that's just gonna make me angry if I watch him. But there is some talk out there that interjects issues and is intelligent, not just like all the pregame shows where you get just guys laughing and having a good time.
Well, do any of those shows have an ability to allow said people, whether they're pundits or guests or whatever, to express a free reign of thought in a fearlessly independent fashion? See, one of the things Kaplan asked me is top of last hour, he said, is Olbermann going to be allowed to say what he wants given the various partnerships that ESPN has? It's a great question. I hope so. Dan is in Saratoga Springs. Dan, I'm sorry, you got about 60 seconds. Go ahead.
Hey, I just I think you bring up really, really good points in regards to the sports talk radio. And this is all part of the dumbing down of America and society. If you look at our current press, just our regular press, no one asks tough questions in the current president. This is all part of the dumbing down process. And they're going to keep feeding the American public, don't think, don't think, don't think. And this is what it's all about. And I think Keith Olbermann is a joke, and I think that show's going to be a joke.
All right, 2 hours in the books. on a Thursday. 2 to go. 2 and a hopper, 2 to go. Till 11 o'clock Eastern Time. That's 8 o'clock out on the West Coast. Get you caught up with a Needless Sports update here at the top. And then back for hour number 3, the DCS on SXM on a Thursday.